Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, talk number 70, July 24, 1935. Sri Raju Shastrigal asked Sri Bhagavan about Nada, Bindu and Kala. Maharshi replied, they are in Vedanta terminology prana, mana, buddhi, that is the life current, mind and the intellect. In the Tantras, Nada is said to be subtle sound with tejas, that is light in it. This light is said to be the body of Shiva. When it develops and sound is submerged, it becomes Bindu. To be full of light or Tejomaya is the aim. Kala is a part of the Bindu. Talk number 71. It is a chronological sequence of the masters, that is Bhagavan's, stay in different places at Tiruvannamalai. In 1896, Sri Ramana arrived at Tiruvannamalai and stayed in the temple premises beneath the tree in the interior of the underground cellar, Patala Lingam, and sometimes in the Gopurams, etc. In the early part of 1897, he was removed to Gurumurtam and stayed in the shrine and in the adjoining mango groves for about 18 months. In September 1898, he stayed in Pavalakundru. In February 1899, he stayed on the hills in the caves, the Mango Tree Cave and the Virupaksha Cave. And thus he stayed in different caves in and around the time, 1899. By the time of 1905, Sri Ramana stayed in Pachiamman Koil for 6 months during the plague, and again he returned back to the hills. In 1908, January, February and March, he stayed in Pachiamman Koil and then again on the hill. By 1916, he stayed in Skandashramam, and then by 1922, he stayed on the Ramanashramam site on the southern slope of the hill. Talk number 72 on September 25, 1935. Mr. K.S.N. Iyer, a railway officer, asked about Japa. Maharshi replied, the utterance and then remembrance and later meditation are the successive stages, finally ending in involuntary and eternal Japa. The Japakarta or the doer of Japa of that kind is the self. Of all the Japas, who am I is the best. Talk number 73, September 27, 1935. Mr. Eknath Rao, the engineer, asked, what about the despondency of not obtaining any encouragement from the Master, much less His grace? Maharshi replied, it is ignorance only. The quest must be made as to who is despondent and so on. It is the phantom of the ego arising after sleep which falls a prey to such thoughts. In deep sleep, the person was not afflicted. Who is afflicted now while awake? The sleep state is about the normal one. Let him search and find out. The devotee then asked, but there is no incentive for want of encouragement. Maharshi replied, does not one find some kind of peace while in meditation? What is the sign of progress? This is it. That peace will be deeper and more prolonged with continued practice. It will also lead to the goal. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, the final verse speaks of Gunatita, the one who transcended the gunas. This is the final stage. The earlier stages are Asuddha Tattva or impure being, Mishra Sattva, mixed being, and Shuddha Sattva, pure being. Ashuddha Sattva, Mishra Sattva, and Shuddha Sattva. Of these, the impure being is when overpowered by Rajas and Tamas. The mixed being is that state in which the being or sattva asserts itself spasmodically or intermittently. The Shuddha Sattva overpowers both Rajas and Tamas. After these successive stages, there comes the state transcending the gunas. This is the Gunatita that Bhagavad Gita talks about. Chapter 74, Talk 74. Mr. Friedman, the engineer, writes in one of his letters, Maharshi is with me, not only when I think of him, but also when I am not thinking of him. Otherwise, how do I live? Talk number 75. Mr. Grant Duff, formerly in a foreign embassy, writes, Pay my respects to Maharshi. He appears to me in my thoughts not only as an answer to my questions, but also as a presence. September 29, 1935, talk number 76. Mr. K.S.N. Iyer said that he was not convinced how spiritual life could be reconciled to worldly activities. The master in answer cited some verses from Yoga Vasishtha. The original Yoga Vasishtha is said to be millions of verses, of which only 32,000 stanzas are now found in Sanskrit texts. It was condensed to 6,000 and called Laghu Vasishtha. The later has been rendered in Tamil in 2050 stanzas. The devotee asked, without the mind concentrating on it, the work cannot be performed satisfactorily. How is the mind to be spiritually disposed and work kept going as well? Maharshi replied, the mind is only a projection from the self, appearing in the waking state. In deep state, you do not say whose son you are, and so on. As soon as you wake up, you say you are so and recognize the world, and so on. The world is only loka. Loka means lokyate iti lokaha. What is perceived is the world. That which is seen is loka, or the world. Which is the eye that sees it? It is the ego which rises and sinks periodically. But you exist always. Therefore, that which lies beyond the ego is consciousness, the self. In deep sleep, mind is submerged and not destroyed. That which merges reappears. It may not happen in meditation also, but the mind which is destroyed cannot reappear. The yogi's aim must be to destroy the mind and not sink in laya. In the peace of dhyana, laya ensues, but it is not enough. It must be supplemented by other practices for destroying the mind. Some people have gone into samadhi, which is a trifling thought, and after a long time awakening in the trail of the same thought. In the meantime, generations have passed away in the world. Such a yogi has not destroyed his mind. Its destruction is not recognition of it as being apart from the self. Its destruction, that is the mind's destruction, is the non-recognition of it as being apart from the self. Even now, the mind is not. Recognize it. How can you do it if not in everyday activities? They go on automatically. Know that the mind promoting them is not real, but a phantom proceeding from the self. This is how the mind is destroyed. Know that the mind promoting them, that is the thoughts, is not real, but a phantom projecting or proceeding from the self. This is how the mind is destroyed. Talk number 77. The Master, while referring to the Bible, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46. There is one alone and there is no second. And the wise man's heart is at the right hand, and the foolish man's heart is at the left. End of talk 77 by Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi.